Hello, my name is Brad Spinner, and I am discussing a case for week two um, from the third chapter of our textbook. The case that I'm interested in is Mogabgab versus Orleans Parish School Board. This is an appeals case. The heard in the Louisiana Fourth Circuit of Appeals. The incident took place in 1966, and we are going to visit some of the facts of the case, arguments on both sides of the case, the court findings, and then the implications for an athletic director that came from the court findings. First, we're going to examine the facts of the case. Before we get into that, though, you should know that Dr. William and Joy Mogabgab are appealing the ruling of a lower court in the death of their son, Robert. And the facts of the case deal with Benjamin Franklin Senior High School having football practice. Robert is participating in practice, the second day of practice. Approximately 5:20, towards the end of practice, the players were involved in wind sprints, and Robert collapses and had to be helped to the bus by two teammates. On his way to the bus, he became nauseous and vomited, and then he vomited also once he got on the bus. Getting onto the bus, he collapsed again and had to be helped to his seat by two teammates. Witnesses say that Robert seemed to lose himself once he was on the bus. The timeline is important here due to the court's final findings. So I will be talking about timeline, and that's important to pay attention to. At 5:40, 20 minutes later, after Robert collapsed, they arrived back at school, where he was helped into the building and laid in the cafeteria on a blanket. He was pale and clammy to the touch, and his breathing was heavy. Teammates helped undress him to get him into the showers. At about 5:50, he was returned from the showers and laid back in the cafeteria on the blanket, and then was subsequently covered with another blanket. First aid that was tried to give was administered to him. The assistant coach, Sam Mondello, gave him an ammonia capsule and unsuccessfully tried to treat him with salt water. At 6:40, an hour and 20 minutes after the initial signs of heat exhaustion, Dr. Howard Wisner and his wife arrived at school to pick up their son and noted that Robert seemed to be in shock and offered to call a physician. The assistant coach told them no, that any medical assistance or treatment would be authorized by one of the school board members, a Dr. Rinker. Dr. Wisner left the school to call the physician, recognizing that Robert's condition was in need of immediate medical attention. The head coach, Robert O'Neill, told the Wisners that Robert's father was a doctor and that Robert's mother had already called their family doctor, Dr. George Birch. At 6:45, Mrs. Joy Mogabgab was called, and she immediately called Dr. John Phillips. At 7:15, we're talking almost 2 hours after first signs of heat exhaustion, Dr. John Phillips arrives at the school to find Robert unconscious, cyanotic, cool, clammy, etc., and diagnosed the condition as profound heat exhaustion with shock to an advanced degree. At 8 o'clock, family doctor, Dr. George Birch, examined Robert and found him seriously ill and in a coma. His prognosis was poor. Robert's condition continued to worsen throughout the night until he expired at 2:30 a.m. Now, the plaintiff's argument and plaintiffs in this case are Dr. William and Joy Mogabgab, who are the parents. They are claiming that appropriate and timely medical attention was not offered to their son. Go on to say that from a statement given by Dr. George Birch, that putting a blanket on top of Robert after he exited the shower was harmful, was an ill-chosen first aid measure. The heat is supposed to during heat exhaustion, you're supposed to let heat escape the body, and by covering the body, you're allowing heat to be trapped. Dr. Birch went on to testify that the medical treatment should be given soon before the patient's conditions reaches an irreversible state, so time is of the essence. So the plaintiffs, the mother and the father, were arguing that not only was ill-chosen first aid given to Robert, but timely first aid and timely medical treatment was denied Robert by his coaches. The defendant's argument in this case is that the causality could not be proven. And causality just means in this case that there's no way of knowing whether or not Robert would have passed away had he been given prompt and appropriate medical attention. Even if the medical attention had been on time, Robert still could have died. And so that they're claiming that there's no way of knowing that Robert's death could have been prevented by these medical measures, and because Robert died, we have no way of knowing if different medical treatment would have saved him. The court findings, in a civil suit, you don't need to prove things beyond a shadow of a doubt. It needs to be enough evidence or sufficient evidence to satisfy the court or a jury. So causality does not have to be proven, and so the court supported the plaintiffs and stated that with appropriate and timely medical attention and treatment, that Robert would have more likely than not survived. And so the appeals court, Louisiana Fourth Circuit Appeals Court, overturned the previous ruling and ruled in favor of Joy and Dr. William Mogabgab. Joy received $20,000 and William, the father, received $21,634 and some change. And the defendants in this case were the Orleans Parish School Board and both of the coaches who were found to be negligent in this case. The implications that this case and cases like this offer to school districts, athletic directors, athletic programs are far-reaching. We, as coaches, are required now to be trained on the signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat-related illnesses. Coaches are required to put their athletes through a period of heat acclimatization so that there is a less likelihood of athletes suffering from heat-related illnesses. This case and others like it are the basis for these requirements of coaches today. Thank you very much.